most creative scores in the W.
Starting to go on a rampage here. They've cut it to 5.
And with the first overall selection in the 2023 NHL Draft, the Chicago Blackhawks are very proud to select from the Regina Pats, the Western Hockey League, Connor Bedard.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you are listening to Mike on the Mic, and everything Chicago sports related podcast. And today, we're talking about everything Chicago baseball, even the Chicago White Sox, our ugly little brothers up south, down south, I should say. But Cubs take the sweep. Cubs take the sweep on 35th Street. You love to see it. Obviously, we're going to have to finish it off for the Crosstown Classic Cup and do that a little bit later in August, and it's going to be exciting to see that at Wrigley Field. I'm excited. First and foremost, I was very excited to talk about this later on into the conversation, into today's episode. Obviously, the Chicago Cubs have come back from a 7-2, obviously being down 7-2, coming back winning 10-7 in this game, thanks to Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, and so many others. We're going to get into that and more. But first and foremost, the White Sox just keep losing even after the game is over. Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez have been traded to the Los Angeles Angels. And in what a fashion that it's happened immediately following a game. Those are things that, you know, I do respect, obviously, Rick Hahn and company for obviously waiting until the game was over. You see a lot of guys get traded mid-game and then leaving out of the tunnel, and they're never seen again. But it's super interesting to see that happen immediately after. I think you kind of have the writing on the walls of what's going to happen with the remainder of the team. Everybody aside from Michael Kopech, Dylan Cease, and Luis Robert, I feel like you're having conversations right now saying that any of them could be potentially available. But that's really what it comes down to. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens during the trade deadline. I think the trade deadline for both teams is going to be absolutely insane. And I would love if somebody could take a screenshot of the box score tonight and just the lineup cards, and then show those lineup cards when the Cubs come back to Wrigley to play the White Sox in August, because that'll be after the trade deadline. I'm very curious to see what those teams look like come August, because it could be two very different teams. You know what I mean? Come that time, we might be having conversations saying that Cody Bellinger and Marcus Stroman and so many others aren't on the team. Kyle Hendricks, you know what I mean? Like we can do the entire bullpen except for Albert Alzolay. So, but looking at that and understanding that, you know, there's a lot of different ways this can go. But nonetheless, we're not here for that right now. We're not here for that right now. We are here to talk in the now. The Chicago Cubs, after beating the Chicago White Sox last night, 7-3 in an amazing fashion. Dansby Swanson with 2 home runs, back-to-back home runs for Dansby Swanson, 2 for 2 with 2 jacks. You love to see it. He's a Sox killer. You love it. We had our Cubs killer tonight. We had our White Sox killer yesterday, and obviously Dansby Swanson, and we had our Cubs killer and Eloy Jimenez tonight doing his thing. So I got to give him his love. I got to give him his credit. Former Chicago Cub, obviously we traded him away in 2017 for Jose Quintana. I will never forget it. And obviously Dylan Cease was the bigger part of that deal as well. But looking at that and understanding, you know, that we've come such a long way since then, and we really have come back in such an amazing fashion. But yeah, we got a bunch of people in the comments right now talking about Lucas Giolito and obviously Ronaldo Lopez. We're going to definitely get into that a little bit more and discuss that. But right now, man, just really breaking that down and having those conversations. That look at my guy Dylan. If you're watching this on the ASAP network right now, Dylan's in the comments talking about the trade. Dylan, I know this is my city. I know what's going on. I already talked about it. You're late. You're late, Dylan. Nah, we appreciate you. For the entire package, for people that are wondering right now, the trade is the Los Angeles Angels have acquired starting pitcher Lucas Giolito and relieving pitcher who honestly probably could be a starter for that rotation, Ronaldo Lopez from the Chicago White Sox, for catcher Edgar Quiero and left-handed pitcher Kai Bush, 2 of their top prospects. which honestly, earlier today, I know we're talking about the crosstown. Bear with me. Give me like 2 seconds. But earlier today, the Angels went on the record and said they are not entertained by any of the Shohei Ohtani offers that they've gotten so far, and he is no longer a part of the package, no longer a part of the trade deadline. So it's interesting to me that less than maybe 2 hours after that was reported from Ken Rosenthal that they make a trade like this. Now, Lucas Giolito hasn't been who he was in 2018, 2019. He isn't that guy anymore. I think that's pretty adamant. But Lopez is obviously very still serviceable, and so is Giolito. To trade your top prospects, however, for those guys, and your reasoning for it is because we want to show Ohtani and Trout that we are serious contenders. You fucked up. You fucked up because those guys suck, man. I can't lie to you. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to be a typical Cubs fan. But if you were trying to show Shohei Ohtani that, hey, we want you to stay here, we're going to trade our top prospects, our top 2 prospects for Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, who got moved to the bullpen because he couldn't start, if you did it for Marcus Stroman, if you did it for one of the top pitchers in this game, I'd completely understand, but absolutely insane. Let's get into it. Starting off the game, taking the mound, Marcus Stroman had a rough start tonight. A good 25-minute break in the top of the 5th definitely did help him out. But to start it off, Cubs are down 0-2 with an Eloy Jimenez 2 RBI single. Obviously, Eloy has always been a Cubs killer, and that's really what it is at the end of the day. Top of the 2nd, Nico Horner comes around, spins the block. You obviously have with a 2 RBI single, and then right back at it, Tim Anderson with a 3-2 score. Singles brings in a run. Kind of flying through the first couple innings of this because I do want to get to the more important parts. It's just kind of going tick for tack throughout the first couple innings. Lance Lynn's stuff was not great tonight. Marcus Stroman's stuff was not great tonight. Both of them were just kind of in between on the level of how valuable they were to these teams. It definitely was a situation to where it was a bullpen night for everybody. Joe Kelly got the loss on this game. He is currently now 1-5 with a 4.97 ERA. Javier Assad got the win after being brought back up from AAA. He is now 1-2 on the year with a 3.52 ERA. Aber Alzolay with the save, his 11th save of the year with a 2.40 ERA, one of the most electrifying closers in all of baseball. Edward who? I don't even know. We're talking about Adbert. That's the new guy on the block when you talk about top closers in this game. But you love to see it. You love to see it from guys like that. Obviously, we go into the bottom of the 4th. A solo shot from the Bergmeister. Jake Berger does his thing, makes it 4-2. Fielder's choice with everybody safe, bases loaded, made it 5-2. And Eloy Jimenez, 2 RBI double, makes it 7-2, and I want to throw up in my mouth just saying that. But it looked very bad very fast. It really did for the Chicago Cubs. A lot of things were going wrong. A lot of things just weren't going in their favor. Honestly, a big part of it was Marcus Stroman, to be completely real with you guys. Like, if we're being legitimate about the conversation, I love Stro. We all love Stro. But this was not his night. July has not been his month. It's definitely a situation right now for Marcus Stroman to where you understand what he was from April March 30th, really, all the way to the end of April, or all the way to the end of July, pardon me. And he's been a very consistent player. But what it was from April to the end of June was one of the best pitchers in baseball. In July, I've seen 4 starts already where I'm kind of seeing that drop off, which is why we have these conversations so much about potentially trading him at the deadline. And I think it's so important because we can't get caught up in the moment of, hey, he has under a 250 ERA, a sub 250 ERA. That's great. I love it. He's an amazing guy. He's electrifying. He's one of those guys you want on this roster. I want him to remain a Chicago Cub. But if you get top prospects for him, look at the market now. The Angels just gave their top 2 prospects for Lucas Giolito. I don't even want to look up. I'm going to throw up if I look up Lucas Giolito's ERA right now. It's a conversation to where you're getting top prospects for nothing, bro. And that's really it. He has a 3.79 ERA. Before that game, he had a 3.96 ERA. It's just not his year. Last year, he had a 4.90. The year before that, 3.53. He's just inconsistent all the way around. And that's something that, when you look at that and you take that into account, what could we potentially get for a guy like Marcus Stroman? I think the sky's the limit. But getting back into the game, really just breaking that down and understanding that neither of these pitchers had a good game. Neither of these pitchers did well. It's definitely a conversation moving forward to, really look at them. Marcus Stroman goes 3.1 innings, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. He leaves I don't even want to look up his ERA after today, to be honest with you. Javier Assad, Julian Merriweather, Mark Leiter Jr., and Adver Alzolay finished off the day. But so far after today, you look at a guy like Marcus Stroman, who's currently sitting at an ERA of 3.51. Mind you, he went into July with a 2.47 ERA. A 2.47 ERA, and now we're at a 3.50. That's why we're trading Marcus Stroman. That's why I've said this the entire time. I see Frankie in the comments. We're not speaking about it. We're not speaking about Cody Bellinger getting traded. We are not manifesting that. But Marcus Stroman, 100%. Now, top of the 5th, this is when things get crazy. Lance Lynn absolutely falls apart. Bases loaded. Mike Talkman with a strikeout, which ends up being a wild pitch. I believe it was Nico Horner who scored, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me on that. But if you haven't checked it out, check out the top of the 5th for the Chicago Cubs versus the White Sox tonight. Obviously, everybody's talking about it. Down 7-2 at this time. An absolute feast. Top of the 5th, RBI single for Ian Happ makes it 3-7. Christopher Morel with a 2-run shot with a single in the game. He's obviously bringing in runs. And we got a guy like Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn, a guy who was a Cy Young candidate just a couple years ago, walking in the winning run for Nico Horner. Bases loaded. He walks Nico Horner, makes it 8-all. This isn't Lance Lynn. This is Joe Kelly at the time. Pardon me. I don't know what I'm talking about. But Lance Lynn obviously shits the bed. They bring in a guy like Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly's having a situation to where, you look at him and you say, this is a guy that you need to pitch very well. I mean, what he was with the Dodgers, what he was with the Red Sox, this guy was lights out. And for the Chicago White Sox, he just hasn't been that. I've heard rumors about him potentially being traded at some point as well. But to reiterate that, I do apologize. It wasn't Lance Lynn that gave up the tying runs. It definitely was Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly on the day just wasn't having it. It wasn't his day whatsoever. He didn't look confident. He kind of just looked like he was going out there working a 9-to-5. It was really one of those games where when you look at Joe Kelly and you look at what he could potentially be, you look at one of the best relievers in baseball. I truly do believe that. And it's far past more than just the memes and far past more who he is as a person. But understanding that and breaking that down and having these conversations that, the Chicago White Sox are very name-valued players. Tim Anderson, a guy who was regarded as a AAA guy. I mean, this guy is somebody who, a triple crown kind of bat. And now you're looking at a guy who hasn't hit a home run in over 365 calendar days. I really don't know what to say to that. I really don't know what they can do to get better. Joe Kelly, one of those guys that you look at and say, hey, he should be one of the best relievers in baseball. Eloy Jimenez, Dylan Cease. I mean, these are all names. Andrew Benintendi. All guys that you think could potentially be some of the best of the best. And it just hasn't turned into that for Pedro Grifol, which, by the way, Taylor McGregor had an amazing story about that today, how in Florida as a kid, David Ross used to go to every single one of Pedro Grifol's games and watch him because he was a catcher. And obviously David Ross wanted to be a catcher, and he would go with his dad, who's also named David. And he would watch him and say that you want to grow up to be like him one day. And now he's handing him hot L's all day long in the crosstown matchup. But you love to see it. But getting back into it, we go into the top of the 8th. You have Ian Happ and another belly bomb, Cody Bellinger, both hit back-to-back jacks. You love to see it. It's just phenomenal baseball from Bellinger so far throughout the whole entire month of July. He's batting over 340 against lefties, batting over 290 against righties. I mean, he's absolutely crushing it right now, batting over 300. You love to see it. You really love to see it. And I'm just really excited to see what the future looks like for not only Cody Bellinger, but the Chicago Cubs with those two together. But again, man, I don't know what to say for the Chicago White Sox. I really don't. And I'm trying to play both sides here. I'm trying to understand what the plan is moving forward. I don't know if there is one. I think obviously, Giolito and Lopez, you get top prospects for them. Sure, fine. Fuck it. At this point, I imagine Lance Lynn is probably going to be in that conversation as well. I imagine Eloy could potentially be on the move. Maybe I don't think Yasmani Grandal gets moved just because there's zero value there. But, you're definitely in a situation to where you gotta win. You gotta win. Mary, I appreciate the follow, by the way. If you're new here, you already know, smack that follow button for me, and definitely check out the All Sports All Plays Network. It does help us out a lot. But with that being said, really talking about that and really breaking it down, this was a great win for the Cubs, man. Just took 3 out of 4 against the St. Louis Cardinals. You sweep the Sox on the Southside on 35th Street. You love to see it. You're going back to Wrigley soon. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. They got a little road stretch ahead of them, and that's definitely going to be interesting, especially heading back to St. Louis. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. We're just a couple days away from the trade deadline, though, man. And obviously, in my personal opinion, you're looking at a team right now. It's 50 and 51. I think they're in an interesting place in the standings, especially when you look at it. They're currently 6 games back to the 57 and 46 Milwaukee Brewers, the 56 and 48 Cincinnati Reds in second, and the 50 and 51 Chicago Cubs. St. Louis Cardinals are 4 games back from the Chicago Cubs, but 11 games back from first place. So there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to look at with that. I'm very curious to see what the future looks like for them. I really am. I think the Cubs' next few days are going to be very interesting. And I honestly, I've been thinking a lot. I've been having conversations with myself, just in how I always do. I'm just always talking about baseball in my room, or just sitting down here and just talking to myself. But really breaking it down and having conversations like, do we want to be sellers again? Like, do we actually? Like, is that like, I'm looking at the pipeline right now. Do we want to be sellers again? Like, what is the point of being sellers? Why are we doing this for a third straight year? It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. I think it's definitely something that you could sell it to me if it's specific players like Julian Merriweather, cool. Like other guys like that, cool. I have no issue. But when I'm looking at this roster, man, and I'm looking what they have the capability of doing, P. Crow Armstrong, Cade Horton, Ben Brown, Kevin Alcantara, Jordan Wicks, Matt Mervis, Brennan Davis, Jackson Ferris, Christian Hernandez, Alexander Canario, James Triantos, Owen Casey, Daniel Palencia. I mean, we can do this all day. DJ Hers, Caleb Killian, Hayden Wesneski. I mean, dude, Riley Thompson, Ryan Jensen. Like, we can do this. BJ Murray, who's ranked 30th and was just, in the All-Star game and the All Futures game. Like, he's an absolute stud, and he needs to be ranked a lot higher. But with that, man, it blows my mind and it baffles me that we have these conversations that these guys aren't ready. Like, I believe they're ready, and I believe they're a lot closer than we think they are. Obviously, I know you guys want to talk about what's happening with Double A, or not Double A, what's happening with the Cubs' current team right now. But now, don't focus on Double A, don't focus on Triple A, don't focus on anything else. And I understand, I definitely understand it. But I mean, dude, like my guy Dylan's in the comments right here. He said, I can't wait for PCA to get up to the show. So hear me out. We have PCA. We have Ian Happ. We have Cody Bellinger. Those are 3 gold gloves in the outfield. You can DH Seiya Suzuki for all I give a fuck. You have 3 gold. You have PCA, who's already won a gold glove in center field. You have Ian Happ, who's won one in left field. You have Cody Bellinger, who's won one and an MVP in center field as well. So you would probably stick Cody in center, unless you want to mold PCA there, but I would stick Cody there if he's still on the roster, just because he's more proven. You could put PCA in left and Ian in right, then just rock out with Seiya on the bench, or even rock out with him as DH. I really don't care, respectfully. But it's definitely something where you look at those guys, look at what's going to potentially happen with this rotation. Say we keep Marcus Stroman. You have Justin Steele, Cade Horton, Ben Brown, Caleb Killian, Hayden Wesneski, Marcus Stroman, Kyle Hendricks. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, we got some killers, man. We got some killers coming up. So to sell me the idea of selling again, I'm just not there, man. I'm just not there. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. A great win for the Chicago Cubs. I'm really excited about what this means moving forward. And what's better than the Chicago White Sox losing 2 games in a row to the North Side and then trading away some of their core pieces? You'll love to see it. You'll love to see the downfall before they even start climbing, right? I guess that wild card loss to the Athletics and losing in the first round of the Astros was their World Series. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening. This is Mike Hughes from Mike on the Mic. Fly that W, baby. Have an amazing night. Go Cubs, go. We're back at it. We're winning the division. Let's rock out, baby.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.